I think in the year 2020 we have lots of calamities. First, it started the year with a pandemic, and then maybe later on there's a danger of a famine. I think especially in Africa. All different kinds of bankruptcy, famine, the man-made calamity or the natural disasters happen this year. I think all of these kinds of disasters that happened this year should bring a clarity on how we tend to be, how humans can be so arrogant and so lazy during when they in the past. For some practitioners, if they have some savings, they can use such savings when when there's not a good there's not a good economy, and it's just like that. Some practitioners have good savings in their practice, and then when suffering dawns, they will be able to withdraw those practice and use it. Since we're still young, we're not that old yet, our eyes can read still, our ears can hear still, and we can still move about, and our memories are still good. So we should see such an opportunity to practice, unlike the opposite situation. That is, as it is stated, do not try to practice when do not wait to practice because you can look at all the tombstones. They are most of them bury the young. Do not practice and do not start studying when you're old. You should really start right now, especially for young people when they still have a good memory and they can hear well, see well. Unlike when people get to 80s and so on, they can't write well, they can't see well on PowerPoint. They have to change and switch different eyeglasses and still can't read. Well, we should seize the opportunity while we still have health, we still have energy, when we still have all the favorable conditions. So we should prepare our practice that we can use later on, because we know that suffering will indeed happen later on. And what can you do after suffering happens? Then you should prepare the medicine that you may need later, the medicine that you know is going to be helpful to you. That's what the wise ones would do. Instead of fearing for suffering, we should prepare to face suffering, and everyone should have their own methods of face suffering, because at the time, I think when misfortune happens to you, you cannot buy any antidote for suffering at that time. Therefore, whomsoever you are, who is still going through the suffering of birth, old age, sickness, and death, we really have to contemplate how we can face those and what kind of methods we can use to face it. Well, I myself, I can't say that I've completely realized the emptiness. However, in terms of turning suffering and happiness into the path, I do have a suggestion, because I do practice in my own practice, or in my way of facing different misfortunes and problems. In fact, I view all of them as positive. Whenever I encounter any misfortune and problems, I would think that, well, there's no way to run away from it. I will face it. Of course, facing it doesn't mean that you force it to go other way, or you try stubbornly to resolve it. In fact, I would use such suffering to change my behavior, my action, and try to find a different way to look at the suffering's value and meaning, to discover its meaning, and see it as an opportunity. I would advise you that do not see wherever you live as this is my hometown, this is my residence. Do not see your family and friends as your family and friends forever, that you cannot depart from them at all. Don't think in such a way, because you will depart from them. Just like all your money should not be saved in the same bank. If this bank went bankruptcy, then all of your money would be at loss. Therefore, we cannot put all of our hope onto only one thing, only one practice or one teaching. We have to have preparation. We have to have really the we have to prepare for the worst. For many years, I contemplate on myself as well. My house, my so and so, those are all very impermanent, very temporary. There's nothing that would last forever in samsara. People may say that you're too negative, you're too pessimistic. You should think about the happy life. This is really not very positive of you. In fact, yes, you can think about things in this way, but when you encounter suffering, if we're prepared, then we can be more positive to face it rather than running away or being very pessimistic when suffering occurs. So I think it's quite important for us to prepare for it in advance. And if you can prepare in advance, then whatever happens in your life can be of great companion to you, can be a favorable companion to you, such as the Buddha. In fact, he said that without Devadatta, then the sixth paramita cannot be practiced to perfection for the Buddha, and it is because of Devadatta the Buddha then perfected the sixth paramita, 10 paramita. So when we listen to this story, it's very difficult to imagine, wow, Devadatta is such a horrible person. And I would disagree. I think, in fact, the Buddha see the whole situation in a completely different way. So practice or transform suffering into path. I think you should practice whatever would be the best for you, would be the most familiar to you. I myself, I think I really enjoy practice on impermanence. I would think about, well, I used to be really healthy, but look at my body now. I used to be a good person, look at me now. And I think because suffering tends to be very coarse, it's very difficult to endure kind of mentality. It's brutal. But right away, if you can contemplate up on impermanence, then it's nothing. Because it is impermanent. For example, if you understand that, for example, if someone got late-stage cancer, you can ask the doctor how long you still have, and doctor said no, there's no way to cure it. Then you can only live for 3 months after. Well, 3 months is not bad. It's almost 100 days, and you can think that I can practice. I can practice in retreat. I think you will be able to gain lots of happiness in that time. I'm not sure if people can understand this kind of realization in practice. So anyhow, we should not trust the samsara. We shouldn't trust the samsara very much, just as you shouldn't trust a bad person. If you trust a bad person, you may not end up very well. If we don't recognize the nature of samsara, think that samsara is all really wonderful and happy, you may get a very different answer than optimistic. If you recognize the nature of samsara, even something happens, you will be prepared. I think nowadays there are so many teachings on being positive, being happy in this life, and the young people after they graduated from university, they step into society and think that the world is just like a heaven. Especially nowadays, the media guide people to think that there's so much happiness in the world, and we have the technology such as computer, internet, and so on, and young people to think that I would enjoy this world. But after they step into the society, they realize that there is a huge gap between dream and reality. At that time, what do you do? How can you view this world? So, from different aspects, we should think about what we can do. This is practice. I think this would be very helpful. There is no there is no difficult theory that is taught in this teaching of transforming suffering and happiness into enlightenment. But if you contemplate upon it very deeply, I think we'll be very we will be very resilient. Even if you get sick, you won't be crying and saying, "I'm sick. I am sick. My family members, my friends, and so on." You would suffer from different things. We, if we have suffering, then we should practice. Without practice, it would be difficult for anyone to face our world. I think this pith instruction is in fact very useful and very practical. I really hope that you can contemplate upon it. I understand that there's not many writing over here, but the content is very sublime, it's very profound and practical. So if you can familiarize yourself with this, then I think within this lifetime, this is the teaching that you use more often than Mahā'ati or the Mahaprajna Paramita. If you can't, if you can't apply it, then you don't really gain anything other than the merit that comes from listening to the Dharma. Just as if your mind is not focused, then doesn't matter how many classes you listen to, it won't be very meaningful. So today we talked about the relative truth, and next time we'll talk about absolute. We'll stop here today.
Sonam dai tamche zubanya tomnan nipe jana panshi jang tirgana je ralong chuba chubum solen joa